Not everyone who is good to you is a good person. Some people enter your life like sunlight, warm, gentle. They make you smile. But then you start to feel smaller. You speak less, apologize more, and at night you lie awake haunted by a single glance, a harmless comment. They still smile, still check in, still offer help in ways that make you feel indebted. There's no yelling, no visible wounds, just one quiet truth. You no longer recognize yourself. If you've ever felt this way, it's not a coincidence. And in this video, you'll realize some good people slowly make you lose yourself piece by piece. These are the 10 most subtle signs of a toxic person. And number 7 might chill you because you thought it was a compliment. And if you've ever asked yourself, why do I feel worse around someone who's always smiling? Let's start with the very first sign, the sweetest and most dangerous trap of all. Number 1, the charm trap, when niceness becomes a weapon. At first glance, charm feels like sunshine. It's the warm smile, the thoughtful compliment, the way someone remembers tiny details about you, your favorite coffee order, your dog's name that bad day you once mentioned in passing. It feels special, personal, genuine. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes charm is not a bridge. It's a bait. Let me tell you about Hannah. She was the kind of person who made everyone feel like the center of the universe. At our first team meeting, she complimented my presentation, laughed at all my jokes, and said, "You're someone I know I'll click with." And we did at first. She always seemed supportive, always had time to help. But slowly, things shifted. If I had an idea, she'd either overly praise it or subtly take credit later. If I got praise from someone else, she'd suddenly grow distant or forget to invite me to a key meeting. When I confronted her gently, respectfully, she said, "Oh wow, I was just trying to help. I guess I care too much." I walked away from that conversation, doubting myself. That's the danger of toxic charm. It feels so good that we ignore the harm. We rationalize it. We hold on to the compliments and overlook the manipulation. But real kindness empowers. It doesn't confuse. Genuine people don't make you guess where you stand. They make you feel safe, not small. So how do you protect yourself? Watch how people behave when they have nothing to gain. Listen to what they say about others when they think no one's paying attention. Charm should be backed by consistency, not confusion. And if charm is their mask, what's behind it? Number 2, emotional vampires. How they drain and distract you. Have you ever left a conversation feeling like something inside you had been taken? Not your time, not your energy, but your clarity. That's what emotional vampires do. They don't bite, they blur. They wrap their words in guilt, their silence in punishment, and their kindness in conditions. Let me tell you about Brian. He was a close friend of mine, the kind you can call at 2 a.m. At least that's what I thought. Whenever I made a decision, especially a big one, he'd always have a subtle way of making me doubt it. Are you sure that's what you really want? Or worse, silence followed by, "It's your life. I just don't want you to get hurt again." At first I thought he cared, that he was just being cautious. But over time, I realized something chilling. The more confused I was, the closer he felt. The more confident I became, the colder he got. Emotional vampires thrive on uncertainty. They don't want to control your choices directly. They want you to feel like you can't make them without them. This isn't support. It's sabotage in slow motion. So how do you recognize it? Do they always make you feel guilty when you say no? Do they vanish when you're doing well, then reappear when you're hurting? Do they offer help only to remind you later how much they did for you? Healthy people want to see you whole, not dependent. They cheer you on even when they're not in the spotlight. Here's the truth. You are not too sensitive. You are not overthinking. If something feels off, that is the signal. Because next, we're stepping into the deeper layer of control. Number 3, subtle control freaks, disguised as helpers. Control doesn't always come with a raised voice. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a suggestion. Let me tell you about Maya. Maya was helpful, unbelievably helpful. When I moved into a new apartment, she showed up with boxes, a toolkit, even groceries. When I started a new job, she gave me tips, networking contacts, even helped tweak my resume. At first, I was grateful, overwhelmed even by her generosity. But then came the trade. Every decision I made, she wanted to weigh in. If I chose differently than what she recommended, she'd act hurt or withdrawn. Once when I joined a weekend workshop she hadn't approved of, she messaged, "Wow, you just do whatever you want now, huh?" It felt petty, but it also made me hesitate. Should I have asked her first? Did I disappoint her? That's the thing with subtle controllers. They don't shout. They suggest. They care. They just want the best for you. But what they really want is authority over your choices. They create a quiet dependency, one where you start checking in with them before checking in with yourself. Here's the truth. Guidance is beautiful. Control is not. Support builds you up. Subtle control wears you down, decision by decision. So ask yourself, do you feel anxious when making choices without them? Do they offer help that ends in guilt trips? Are you growing more or shrinking slowly? Real allies celebrate your independence. They don't fear your growth. Because if you think subtle control is dangerous, wait until you meet those who never take responsibility for anything. Number 4, master blamers. They're always the victim. Some people never get wet, even in the storms they create. You know the type. Nothing is ever their fault. They were misunderstood. You were too sensitive. The project failed because you didn't listen. The argument happened because you overreacted. Let me tell you about Kevin. Kevin was that guy everyone loved. Funny, charismatic, always had a story. But when things went wrong, Kevin disappeared. Or worse, he'd twist the narrative so fast you'd forget what really happened. Once we worked on a joint project for a nonprofit campaign. I handled logistics. He handled content. When deadlines slipped, he told our manager it was because I didn't follow through on planning. It wasn't true, and I had the emails to prove it. But when I brought it up, he smiled and said, "I just thought it'd be easier if we pinned it on someone who could take it." That moment taught me something chilling. Some people don't mind throwing you under the bus as long as they're driving. They position themselves as the good guy, the victim of circumstance, the misunderstood genius. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them even when your gut tells you otherwise. So, how do you spot a master blamer? They never apologize without deflection. Sorry you felt that way. They turn every correction into a personal attack. And they're always the one who tried their best while everyone else let them down. Accountability is the foundation of trust. Without it, every relationship becomes a one-way street where you're walking on eggshells and they're skating on ice. And if you're already tired of walking on eggshells, wait until we talk about something even harder to detect. The kind of fake kindness that looks like empathy but is really something else. Number 5. Fake empathy. The weaponized listener. There's nothing more disarming than someone who gets you, or at least pretends to. That's the trap of fake empathy. It's not always loud or dramatic. Often it comes softly, gently, wrapped in concern. Let me tell you about Olivia. Olivia was the kind of person who always knew the right thing to say. She'd listen carefully when I vented, nod thoughtfully, and offer lines like, "You don't deserve that. I would never treat you that way." At first it felt healing. I trusted her. I opened up more. But months later, during a falling out with another friend, something strange happened. Details I'd shared with Olivia in confidence started showing up in conversations I wasn't a part of. Private fears, vulnerabilities, even my exact words. When I asked her, she said, "I only mentioned those things because I was worried about you." That's when I realized she wasn't listening to support me. She was listening to store ammunition. Fake empathy isn't about connection. It's about collection of your weaknesses, your doubts, your private truths, so they can be used later to gain trust, power, or attention. So, how do you recognize it? They ask deeply personal questions, but rarely open up in return. They frame concern in ways that make them look like the savior. And when trust is broken, they never admit fault. They say it was for your own good. Real empathy feels safe, not strategic. It builds bridges. Fake empathy builds leverage. And if someone can twist empathy into a weapon, what happens when they try to cut you off from everyone else? Let's talk about one of the most dangerous tactics of all. Number 6. Isolation engineering, cutting you off slowly. Toxic people don't always burn bridges. Sometimes they quietly dismantle them, one board at a time. And before you know it, you're standing alone wondering how you got so far from everyone else. That's what isolation looks like. Not loud, not obvious, but devastating. Let me tell you about Rachel. Rachel was a close friend or so, I thought. She never said, "Don't hang out with them." Instead, she'd say things like, "I don't think your sister really supports you, you know?" Or, "Your coworkers seem a little fake. Are you sure they have your back?" At first, it felt like she was just looking out for me. But the more I listened, the more suspicious I became of everyone in my life except her. And that's exactly how she wanted it. Toxic isolation isn't always forceful. It's suggestive. It's that slow, steady erosion of trust in everyone but the person pulling the strings. Eventually, I found myself declining calls, skipping group outings, and running every personal decision through Rachel because she just understood me better. That's not friendship. That's captivity disguised as closeness. So, how do you spot isolation engineering? They consistently question your other relationships, even subtly. They present themselves as the only one who truly gets you. And over time, you feel more disconnected, not just from people, but from your past self. Here's the truth. Anyone who loves you will want you to be surrounded by more love, not less. They won't cut your ties. They'll help you strengthen them. And while isolation might be their long-term game, sometimes it starts with something even sneakier, a compliment. But not the kind you're thinking of. Number 7, competitive kindness. When praise feels like poison. You did great, but I didn't expect that from you. That's how it starts. A compliment wrapped in sugar dipped in doubt. Let me tell you about Mark. Mark and I were both building our businesses at the same time. We'd meet for coffee, swap stories, cheer each other on, or so I thought. One month, I landed a major client I'd been chasing for over a year. I was ecstatic. When I told Mark, he smiled and said, "Wow, impressive. I didn't think they'd go for your style." It's kind of niche, right? It stung. But I laughed it off. Then it happened again and again. Every win was met with a "nice job, but..." Eventually, I realized he wasn't celebrating me. He was competing with me under the disguise of kindness. This is competitive kindness, a toxic tactic that looks like support but feels like shrinkage. It's when someone compliments you just enough to appear generous, but injects just enough doubt to keep you small. So how can you tell the difference? You leave conversations with them feeling smaller, not bigger. Their praise is always paired with subtle one-upmanship. And when others compliment you, they go quiet or change the subject. Real friends don't measure your light against their shadow. They don't fear your growth, they fan it. So, here's your reminder. True praise lifts. False praise limits. And while competitive kindness chips away at your confidence, there's another red flag that erodes something deeper, your sense of reality. Number 8, chronic lying, the tactic of mental domination. Some lies are told to hide, others are told to control. Let me tell you about James. James wasn't your typical liar. He wasn't sloppy. He didn't contradict himself. He didn't spin outrageous tales. No, James was calculated. He lied just enough to keep people unsure, just enough to stay in control. When we worked together on a team project, he claimed to have sent a crucial report that no one received. When asked about it, he said, "Strange. Maybe it went to spam." Later, when I followed up, he changed the story. "Actually, I sent it to Amanda because you said you were swamped." But I never said that. When I finally pressed him directly, he smiled and said, "Are you sure you're remembering this right?" That's the signature move of a chronic liar. They don't just tell lies. They infect your memory. They make you question what's real until you rely on them to interpret everything. This isn't about forgetfulness. This is mental domination. Slow, quiet erosion of your ability to trust yourself. So, how do you spot it? Their stories shift depending on the audience. They never admit fault, only confusion, and you begin second-guessing what you know, you saw, said, or felt. Here's the Stoic truth. Truth stands alone. Lies require a support system. If someone's reality always needs adjusting, clarifying, or rephrasing, you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance. And the scariest part, over time, chronic lies don't just alter your memories, they alter your identity. But what if the person doing the damage actually enjoys your pain? That's next. And it's darker than most people are ready to admit. Number 9, enjoying others' suffering, the hidden sadist. It's one thing to make mistakes. It's another to cause harm and smile. This one took me a long time to see, because no one wants to believe that someone close to them enjoys watching others fall. But some people do. Let me tell you about Lisa. Lisa was charming, witty, always the life of the group. But there was a pattern I didn't catch at first. Whenever someone stumbled, breakup, a missed promotion, a public embarrassment, she came alive. Her eyes lit up, her tone softened, almost tender. And then came the twist. It's just sad, but you know, I always had a feeling something like this would happen. And then she'd retell the story again and again, always with a smirk, always with concern. At first, I thought she was just being brutally honest. But eventually, I saw it. She wasn't reporting misfortune. She was relishing it. That's the quiet cruelty of a hidden sadist. They won't shove you off the ledge. They'll just narrate your fall and call it truth. So how can you tell they consistently highlight others' failures, never their triumphs? Their support feels like spotlighted sympathy, performative, not protective. And when you're hurting, they linger just a bit too long, with just a little too much satisfaction. Here's what I've learned. Kind people may hurt you accidentally, but it breaks their heart. Toxic people hurt you intentionally and call it honesty or even love. Pain isn't entertainment, and anyone who treats it like it is should never be in your inner circle. And if that wasn't dark enough, there's one more trait that ties all the others together: the inability to ever feel remorse. Number 10, no remorse, no growth. The terminal narcissist. Everyone makes mistakes. What separates us is what we do after. A healthy person reflects, apologizes, grows. But a terminal narcissist, they don't flinch, they don't change, and they sure as hell don't say sorry, at least not like they mean it. Let me tell you about Drew. Drew had a pattern. He would cross boundaries, say things that cut deep or disappear when people needed him most, and every time someone brought it up, he had a reason. You're too sensitive. It wasn't that big of a deal. Well, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted that way. He'd dress it up as logic, wrap it in charm, but never, not once did he say, "You're right, I hurt you, and I'm sorry." It was always about avoiding the mirror. That's the signature of someone who refuses growth. They don't believe they need to change. They believe the world needs to change around them. So, how do you recognize this kind of person? Their apologies are conditional or non-existent. They repeat harmful behavior, not because they forget, but because they don't care. And when confronted, they turn it back on you always. The Stoics teach that wisdom begins with her eyes self-awareness. To be wrong is human. To reflect is powerful. But to harm and never own it, that's not just dangerous, that's soul-corroding. Here's the truth you need to remember. You are not responsible for teaching someone how to have a conscience. You can offer grace, but you do not owe unlimited chances to someone who never chooses change. So now that you've seen all 10 signs, what do you do with this knowledge? Let's talk about that and how to protect your peace for good in our final message. So what now? How to detox your circle without guilt. So here you are. You've made it through 10 red flags, 10 patterns, 10 uncomfortable truths. Maybe you saw someone you know. Maybe you saw yourself. And that's okay. Awareness isn't always gentle. but it is always powerful. You don't need to confront anyone today. You don't need to send long messages or close doors with drama. But what you can do, starting now, is honor that quiet voice inside you, the one that said, "Something feels off." The one that noticed when a laugh didn't feel kind, when support left you feeling small, when love came with too many strings. That voice, that's your compass, that's your power. The truth is, you don't need toxic people to approve of your healing. You don't need to explain your boundaries to those who are never going to respect them. And you are allowed, completely allowed to outgrow people who refuse to grow themselves. Let them call it selfish. Let them call it cold. You can call it what it truly is, self-respect. And here's the final gift I want to leave you with. You do not need to fix toxic people. You only need to free yourself from them. If this video spoke to you, share your story. Comment below. Which of the 10 signs hit home the hardest for you? And if you're ready to build a life with real peace, real connection, and real self-worth, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay with us because the journey to emotional freedom is just getting started. I'm glad you're here. We'll grow together.